this question, I bet everybody's gonna ask you. So should I buy Bitcoin or should I mine it? Well, to me, I'll tell you my perspective, and then you can rate
Yeah,
that.
please.
So I look at it very simple. The math you give me showed the cost to mine right now is about 50 to 55K per coin, whereas I personally think Bitcoin will, well, Bitcoin is already at over 100K and it's very rarely gonna dip below that. So the margin is already like 40 or 50%. So I'm literally mining um Bitcoin, I'm getting Bitcoin for wholesale price and I can, and whereas other people are buying it at retail price. So to me, it's like free money. However, um, all these risks that we just talked about, right? There's inherent risk in them. Therefore, um, you know, it's that fat margin is, I guess, to compensate the risks because you're not like you gotta mind it. There's physical work and you're getting paid back in 2.5 years or 3 years and all that stuff. So there is still risk in there. And is it worth it? For me personally, I like it. So I mean, I'm doing both. I'm buying and I'm mining. So because my goal is to accumulate Bitcoin instead of like, calculating price all the time. I don't care about that. So I'm doing both. I do think for me personally, it works in my profile, in my risk profile. I don't mind taking that risk and mine. Meanwhile, I still buy. So that's how I'm looking at it. So what's your perspective?
That's a perfect way to sum it up. I almost don't even want to say anything because that's exactly the way to think of it.
Because I know I'm gonna, after we publish this, like people are gonna ask me that, and literally that's 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 how I think. So
Yeah. So you outlined it perfectly. If you don't expect to get a higher return, why take on the risk? So if you believe the tax advantages are worth it and you can make more Bitcoin by mining than buying, then mining absolutely makes sense. And it is exactly what you said. You're producing an asset at a discount to market, and the more that the market values that asset, the bigger that discount is, the wider your margin is, and the smarter you look for being in mining rather than buying it. The other,
Hmm,
excuse me,
bless you.
um, the other aspect of that is that this is an income stream, right? So just holding Bitcoin is not an income stream. I heavily advise people to hold on to all the Bitcoin that they mine and just take the operating expenses out of something else so that you can hold on to all your coin.
Which
But at
which means you're mining Bitcoin, but you're paying electricity with US dollars or with fiat money, right?
exactly, you don't want to sell your Bitcoin to pay for your electricity, and you absolutely can. You have optionality. I'm not saying you absolutely can't, but we have people on our team who have been mining since 2012 and they have mined well over 100 Bitcoin, but unfortunately, many of those coins have gone to paying electricity bills. And so that, may have been a couple $1,000s worth of electricity at the time, but at this point has become a $10 million plus opportunity cost. So wherever you can, the important distinction here is yes, this is a cash flowing business. Yes, this is an income stream. But ultimately, what you are doing, if you believe in this, and the reason you're getting into this, is holding on to as much Bitcoin as possible because Bitcoin is the asset. The miners are not the asset. The cash flow is not the asset. The Bitcoin that you mine and hold on to is that long-term position that you were looking to build as much of as possible. And that's the big distinction between this and something like rental properties, where your rental property is the asset and you're collecting cash flow from that rental property and then going buy more properties. You can absolutely collect cash flow from your miners and go buy more miners as long as you understand the goal at the end of the day is not to have the most miners, it's to have the most Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So I just want to reframe for people your cash flow that you're generating is the long-term asset, not necessarily the thing that's producing it in this case.
Right, right. So for example, like it took me about so I got into this around 2017. So it took me what, 7, 8 years now to really wrap my head around it and realize that I'm not fiat currency denominated. I'm thinking in terms of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency denominated, right? Like so I don't care about price. I just care about quantity. So all I do is I try to accumulate it. And so here comes a person like a real personal stories, right? So I got in around 2017 and I lost all my coins, my Ether, my Bitcoin due to, multiple scams that everybody's bound to run into um, in this industry. Um, and honestly, even if there's no scam, you're gonna spend it. So and I usually tell myself, damn, like, I lost so much. And then I happen to be at meetings where it's all bunch of like Bitcoin early adopters. They got in around like 2013, 2014-ish. Like I'm not kidding you. Like at the peak, their wallet has about 100 million worth of US in their just in their wallet. Um, and then it's all gone.
Mm,
And 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 I've been in several of these gatherings where everybody's a much earlier adopter than me. Guess how many people hold on to their coins?
very few.
Zero. I
Mm,
only know one person. After all these years, I only know one person that, obviously he's very, financially free and all of that stuff, doesn't really care about the price anymore. But one out of like hundreds of men, right? So, so if I mine, so now I just buy it and I don't look at it. And when I mine it, it's just directly to the wallet. I don't look at it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm starting from zero again because just like everybody else, um, I don't have any coins, right? So that's
this
just human nature.
it plays back into, I always like to look at someone who's doing it smarter than me or better than me or bigger than me as an example of how to actually play this. And in this case, I would look to the wealthiest people in the world for how they think of assets, and real estate is a great parallel for this again. Most people with the highest net worth in the world, when they need money, they're not selling their asset and incurring a capital gain and then getting cash. They're usually collateralizing an asset. So they're not going and selling their commercial building in Manhattan so that they can fund their lifestyle. They're probably taking out a loan against it and collateralizing it, and not incurring any kind of tax liability, and then going about their life as they please. And Bitcoin, especially in the early days, it wasn't possible to get lending against it. And I would have recommended you have very low LTV because obviously the price moves around quite a bit. But you're definitely starting to see it become an institutional asset where, just like you could collateralize a piece of real estate and take out a loan against it and fund your lifestyle and not have a taxable event, you can do the same thing with Bitcoin at this point. So obviously, be very careful with leverage because leverage is the quickest way to, um,
I
you
bought
know,
everything.
yeah, it's the quickest way to absolutely blow up your position and take you out of the market. But as long as you're responsible with it, it's also a way that you can avoid having that story of, oh man, I sold all my coin at, $300 and I thought I was a genius because I made 1,000% gains, but it turns out I should have held for longer. If you don't want to sell your coin, which I would encourage people not to sell their coin, you can always take out responsible leverage against it to fund your lifestyle, make a purchase. As long as you understand what you're doing, that can be a strategy for not having that huge wave of regret 10 years down the road when that thing that you sold, still had another order of magnitude or two to run.
Right, right, right. Um, yeah, absolutely. And um the so let's I think we've elaborated this one pretty well. So